You are listening to the Intelligent Vocalist Podcast, episode 51.
Welcome to the Intelligent Vocalist with John Henny. This is the podcast dedicated to help you be a smarter, better, more informed singer. And now, your host for the Intelligent Vocalist, John Henny.
Hey, this is John Henny. Welcome back to another episode of the Intelligent Vocalist. All right, let's talk about the ear, nose, and throat doctor. This can strike fear into the hearts of singers, ENT. I have had students terrified to go to the ear, nose, and throat doctor and actually put it off, worried about what they would find out. They didn't want to hear the truth. And that's unfortunate because the one thing that you have to realize about your voice is if you feel that something's going on, if something's not right, the longer you wait, the bigger the problem can be. So I do want to encourage you to get to an ear, nose, and throat doctor right away. Now, choosing an ear, nose, and throat doctor, it can be like choosing a voice teacher. And believe it or not, in the bigger cities, especially here in LA and also New York, Nashville, I'm sure has some of this, you get a little bit of a celebrity culture around medical professionals, just as you do around hairdressers and personal trainers and, yes, voice teachers. And when you start working with celebrities, it raises your credibility because one thing celebrities are good at is picking medical professionals. All celebrities are medical experts, and you cannot be famous until you've proven that you are a medical expert, which of course is nonsense. However, celebrity is a very, very powerful thing in our culture, and we're all swayed by it. So the way it kind of works here in LA is celebrity voice teachers get in with celebrity ENTs. And a lot of celebrities that voice teachers get actually come from the ear, nose, and throat doctor. A lot of times singers don't seek out a voice teacher on their own, or they don't know who to choose, so they get recommended by the ear, nose, and throat doctor. However, the ear, nose, and throat doctor recommends voice teachers that send them clients. It's kind of a two-way street. And ear, nose, and throat doctors don't always know who the best voice teachers are either. However, if a voice teacher is terrible, the ear, nose, and throat doctor would see that their students aren't getting better. So if an ear, nose, and throat doctor recommends a voice therapist, that's a little more regulated than voice teachers. Voice teachers are the Wild West. If they recommend a voice teacher, you can be sure, well, not sure, but pretty sure they're at least decent. And if your voice teacher recommends an ear, nose, and throat doctor, hopefully they've kind of studied and vetted that doctor and not just sending you because the doctor then sends them clients. Now, having said that, let's say that you need to choose a teacher on your own. You want to find an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Well, as the name implies, they work on the ear, the nose, and the throat. Some ENTs specialize more in the ears. Some ENTs specialize more in the nose and or different cancers. And then there's a branch of ENTs that are laryngologists, and they specialize in the larynx or the voice. So they have additional training in voice disorders. And you do want to look for somebody, if you can, if you're in a bigger city, you should be able to find, I believe they're called fellowship-trained laryngologists. That means they've done, I think it's an extra year of training in laryngology. And then even further specialized if they really focus on professional voice users. Now, a professional voice user, not just singers. It can be teachers, public school teachers, salespeople, attorneys, business people, public speakers, anybody who uses their voice primarily to make their living. So that encompasses a lot of people. Usually doesn't encompass accountants. They don't really use their voice too much, or computer programmers. So, but if it's somebody that really focuses on professional voice users, that is a great sign. Now, when you go to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, hopefully your laryngologist, professional voice teacher, or voice user specialist, they will have different types of equipment. And you may have seen this. And getting scoped is actually pretty painless. It's where they take the little camera and they can see inside your vocal folds. This was first developed, I don't know the date. It was well over 100 years ago, and I'm sure someone listening to me is screaming it out. I believe in the 1800s by Manuel Garcia, who was a voice teacher who actually took a mirror and was able to look back down in his throat and see his vocal cords in action. And it is believed he was the first person to see the vocal cords actually working, not just from a cadaver. So now we have sophisticated equipment. There are two main types of equipment. There is the soft flexible scope that goes up through your nose and then down and can see the vocal cords from directly above. And then there is the hard scope that is solid, that goes in your mouth and looks directly down. Of the two, they both have their uses, but in general, the hard scope that goes through the mouth is the one that you want. It gets a more accurate picture. I'm not an ear, nose, and throat doctor, but my understanding is it's easier to misdiagnose what's going on with the flexible scope. Things like phlegm can look like nodules, which is the word that freaks everybody out. And if you get misdiagnosed with nodules, you're going to have a lot of sleepless, freaked out nights for no reason. So the hard scope is better. And then if they're able to do a stroboscopy, which they get a strobe because the vocal folds move faster than the human eye can see. So it's a timed light that actually the vocal cords will go in slow motion. And you can go on YouTube and just search for that, and you'll see different stroboscopies there. And that way they can see just how the vocal fold is functioning, how it's functioning within the wave, because sometimes there can be issues with vocal fold function and with muscular function that the vibration of the folds is a bit of the problem. It's not something obvious like a polyp or blister on the vocal fold surface. So that's what you want to look for. Now, when should you go see an ear, nose, and throat doctor? I've heard varying time frames where I've heard doctors recommend, if you have a bit of a condition in the voice and after a couple of weeks it's not getting better, you should go in. And then I've heard if it's not getting better within a few days, you should go in. And between that, you know your own voice, especially if you've been singing a while. So if you feel something's not right, you should go see the ear, nose, and throat doctor. Now, some of the common problems that will be run into, everybody knows about nodules, and everyone's afraid of nodules. And if they're hoarse after singing one night, maybe they've oversung, they think, oh my gosh, I have nodules. Nodules are actually a chronic condition in that they take time to form. And they form because of friction. So the idea is friction plus time causes most vocal issues. And as you stress the tissue of the vocal folds, it will begin to thicken and harden to protect itself, much like a callus on your hands. And when it does that, we have a problem, because now imagine if we had a big old callus on our lips and we were trying to play the trumpet. You begin to lose the flexibility that you need within the folds, and also they can't come together properly. And you can kind of know if you have nodules. You're going to start to have issues primarily in your vocal transition, Your vocal break may become a little wider, a little more pronounced. You have to work harder to not fall apart in your break. Your onsets are going to become a bit more breathy and squeaky as you try and hit them. Even your speaking voice will tend to become a bit more raspy. You'll begin to lose your high notes. Now, this is not, again, you have conditions that are acute and conditions that are chronic. Acute are conditions that come on right away. And those are laryngitis, which is any type of swelling, be it from a virus or yelling too much. There are conditions like a vocal hemorrhage. Those tend to be more acute. They come on quickly. But nodules are chronic. They take a while to come on. But if you start feeling those symptoms, you want to get to the ear, nose, and throat doctor right away, because the earlier you catch it, the easier it is to get rid of them. They don't harden as much, and so they will dissolve more easily. So you definitely want to get in quickly if you start to feel that's not going away. You're starting to lose some range, your break's getting a little wider, your speaking voice is maybe getting a little bit on the raspy side or breathy side. Go see an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Now, some of the other conditions that are less common is you can get polyps and cysts. They're both like fluid-filled blisters, if you will, like a blood blister on your hand when you get those, fluid-filled blister. The polyps are on the outside of the fold and the cysts are on the inside. Now, nodules, these days, doctors really don't do surgery on them. They used to be, doctors would perform surgery much more often, not so much today. And I recommend you not get surgery unless it's some extreme circumstance and you've gotten at least a second opinion. Now, with the polyps, you usually have to get surgery for those, because even if they begin to diminish, you still have that loose skin from the blister. And a cyst is inside the fold. Those, my understanding is the surgery is trickier. It's a bit more debatable. Now, some singers have polyps and they learn to sing around them. The polyp will actually move under the vocal folds, and so they don't have to have surgery. It's not all the time. Again, I like doctors who don't go with surgery as their first choice. The cyst, because it's inside the vocal fold, it's a little bit trickier, and you have this kind of gelatinous tissue substance within the fold that you don't want damaged. That's what really gives the fold its pliability and its musical ability to vibrate. And if you mess with that and you lose too much of it, it can't be replaced. And so you can suffer permanent voice damage, which we do not want. Other issues are a granuloma, which is like an ulcer irritation that's back on the cartilages at the rear of the vocal folds. You have these little triangles that help the folds open and close. The vocal folds only open from the back, and they're attached together at the front. And these little door handles, if you will, these cartilages that open and close, if they're closed too forcibly and they begin to rub together, they can become ulcerated. That can be a bit painful. Can also happen with extreme sneezing and coughing. So granulomas are a possibility. And then you can get a hemorrhage where you get a blood vessel that can burst and leak blood into the folds, which can cause some swelling. You can get combinations of these issues where singers will be pushing and pushing on nodules, and so they have to start squeezing harder and harder, which then causes the folds to slam together with more and more impact, which raises the risk of a hemorrhage. Just as a side note, be very careful with anti-inflammatories such as Advil, because they can actually, though they will reduce inflammation on the cords, because we don't like inflammation, it makes it hard to sing, they can actually make us more prone to a hemorrhage. And women, here's another area in life where you get the short straw because you're more prone to this. So there you go. Just as the other thing that's not quite fair is they think they've discovered in female voices, you tend to have drier voices because your tube, if you will, that the air passes through is shorter than a man. So there's less time and distance for it to become moistened and humidified by your body, if you will. So you get your own special voice problems. But it's made up for it by the fact that because men have thicker, longer vocal folds and more chest voice, that when their transition comes, it can be a real difficult area. That area tends, not that it's easy for anyone, it tends to be a little easier for women than for men. Now, you want to, if you can, let your voice teacher know the doctor you're going to, and ask the doctor to or give permission for the voice teacher to be in contact and to see your records. If you're suspecting that there are vocal issues, you kind of want to have a team behind you. And if you really trust your voice teacher, let your voice teacher speak with your doctor so they understand what's going on and they can work together, or at least communicate in how best to help you. If you're put on vocal rest by the doctor, that usually means vocal rest. You need to be quiet. However, they don't do vocal rest the way they used to because they don't want those muscles to atrophy. So a good voice teacher will be able to help you with rehab in that way. Now, if you don't have a voice teacher in general, when you vocalize, you want to be very careful and take your time. Don't go in and start trying to belt and sing big tones. If you can just do gentle, narrow vowels like ooh, ee, not too loud. Don't start trying to get into the wah kind of singing because that's going to likely cause too much stress on the folds. Now, let's talk about nodules again. If you are diagnosed with nodules, and you follow the doctor's instructions and your nodules dissipate, here's the bad news. If you go back to what you were doing before and engaging in the same behaviors, your nodules will likely come back. So if you do get nodules, you are going to have to do a little bit of self-reflection as to what you're doing vocally. If you're not studying with a really good voice teacher, you really should think about it. If you're studying with a voice teacher and you feel you're doing everything they tell you to do and you're getting nodules, you might want to think about trying another voice teacher. I know that's a delicate subject, but your voice is the most important thing after coffee. So you need to just take care of yourself. Do not be afraid. Get in there and get the information. The quicker you get the information, the quicker you're diagnosed, the quicker you can stop the problem from growing. You can fix the problem, and then you can know what to do in the future to not have that problem come back. Now, the other thing that people are often diagnosed with is reflux, which is that pepsin in the stomach, your digestive acids coming up and burning the folds, kind of digesting your vocal folds. Of course, the stomach acid is in our system. And the voice is, I wouldn't have designed the voice this way. I wouldn't have the voice sharing digestion and swallowing and eating and having this vat of caustic dissolving material sitting below it that can travel up and burn your cords. But what can we do? That's the system we're given. So you just want to be careful with what you eat. If you do have reflux, follow the doctor's orders with diet, etc. Sometimes it's now starting to be what I've heard a bit overdiagnosed. If ear, nose, and throat doctors just see redness or swelling, they kind of jump to the reflux diagnosis. So you might want to get a second opinion. Again, if you're really dealing with a specialist, a laryngologist who deals with voice professionals, you're in better hands. And then if they're using the top end equipment, and if you get the stroboscopy, make sure that you get a copy of the stroboscopy video because you can send it to other doctors. There are some great doctors around the world who can give you a second opinion just by looking at that. Dr. Kurt Stock in Salt Lake City is absolutely fantastic. Dr. Reena Gupta here in Los Angeles at the Osborne Head and Neck Institute, she is great as well. You can reach out to them and get second opinions and keep yourself healthy. Hey, I actually just finally launched my Contemporary Voice Teacher Academy. Right now it's gone out to my email list, but by the time you hear this, I think it should be open to the public. You can go to johnhenny.com and click on the products tab. And if you see it there, well, then it's open for business and you can jump in. This will take you, I've designed this course to take you from never having taught a voice lesson to being a really good, solid contemporary voice teacher. And it goes step by step, gives you all the vocal tools and pedagogy, how to diagnose voice, vocal science, etc. And there's a certification test, and I'm really happy with this. And the beta testers that have been going through it are really enjoying it as well. So there's my little commercial. Until I get, if I ever decide to get sponsors, I'll be my own sponsor and I'll do my own commercials. Thank you very much. Again, thank you so much for listening. You can get this podcast if you want to read the transcript. Look at the show notes. It's johnhenny.com/51. johnhenny.com/51. I'll have the full transcript of the episode up there as well. If it's not there when you go, it should be there within a day or two. That means that you just jumped on this thing right away. So I'll have people working on this. And until next time, to better singing. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.